Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Wright Flyer. This is Randy Wright, your captain speaking, and as always, I'm joined by my first officer, Jeremy Grapington. Folks, this will be the final boarding call for our state-of-the-art radio program, so if you please, claim your seats, fasten your seatbelts, kick back, relax, and enjoy the show, while Jeremy and I go ahead and delve into the pre-flight checklist, because there really is a lot of news and information to get to before we may fully indulge you with your in-flight entertainment. Well, folks, I'm sure you've all noticed that Sarah Palin must have been drinking the Flint water supply because she came out and endorsed Donald J. Trump. And also, I think she must have raided the 1980s pop, MTV music video set for Michael Jackson's Thriller to find that coat. I've never seen such a metallic monstrosity. And folks, I am by no means a fashion critic. I can't tell you what a brand of suit is or whether it's tailored or not. What I can tell you is that whatever she was wearing actually forms a common denominator between she and Donald Trump, in so much as she and he have bad choices in style. I mean, look at his hair. That thing looks like skunk fur. It must be skunk fur. And then she's wearing metal. And folks, the way she just went off on tangents during that speech was beyond belief. It was as though she were off in La La Land. And her voice was always kind of grating to me, but it was bad.
I'm of the mindset that she's on board with Trump to provide hairstyling tips and tricks for him. In fact, next week he'll be donning a bleached moose pelt.
If he wanted to show his wealth, he ought to do it with a mink fur. Mink coats, those were really nice.
Yeah. Huggy Trump, Huggy Bear from Starsky. We'll call him Huggy Trump from
or the Care Bears. He could get like multicolored hair. It's just
listen. The gay votes.
Yeah, but just listening to what she was saying, it was absolutely asinine. She was like sitting there saying, "Oh, the heads are spinning. Media heads are spinning." No, they're not. The only thing that's spinning is you and the positions you've held and Donald Trump trying to figure out what he was doing. He looked like he was constipated, standing on the stage behind her. And it's something that Rush mentioned, and I thought it was interesting. It was that Trump's not the kind of guy that just stands aside. He's too domineering for that, or else his hairpiece is. And it was awkward. It was an awkward moment. She was awkward, probably awkward like the reality with respect to the fact that she's been stumping for John McCain in Arizona. But she's against the establishment, Jeremy. She's against the establishment.
Yeah. She's against crony capitalism. Well, don't you know? Donald Trump is going to make America great again, you betcha. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. With Winnebago, code beige.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. And we're going to kick ISIS ass. Oh, you betcha. Yeah. Yeah.
But you know what?
Hard to do to begin with.
Yeah. But you know what? All this crap about the establishment, that goes back into the semantics. There really is no such thing as the establishment. And the reason I'm going to say that is that the United States of America, and this is something that I mentioned in today's earlier solo flight special, is a nation of laws, not of men. Therefore, the only establishment that there is the United States Constitution. So if you say that you're anti-establishment, you are actually saying you are against the Constitution. And the reason I say this is
joining ranks with Huggy Trump or Trumpunzel, whichever you want to call him. It shows that.
Yeah. And, it goes in line with this whole notion of illegal immigration. Mm-hmm. There's no such thing.
Right.
There is a detente wing, a live and let live. That is that mentality that has been there since Zygmunt Dobbs wrote about the threats facing this country, but there is no such thing as the establishment. And I really think that should be pushed aside. because it is allowing for there to be a distraction. It is allowing for there to be more of these nuanced games of semantics, which really should have no place in this whatsoever. Because when you stop and think about it, it allows someone like Sarah Palin to come out and seem legitimate, even though, truth be told, she is not.
Well, and here's the other thing. Ted Cruz actually responded to this, and he said, "Look, I love Sarah Palin. I absolutely do. She's a great person. She's strong-willed. She's this, she's this, she's this." He did nothing but bolster her up. He says, "But she made her choice." And he didn't attack her for it. He, kind of left that up to us and other people to do, which is fine, because that's part of our job.
Sure.
And our obligation is to recognize threats to liberty and our unalienable rights.
And to just point you to the truth.
Sure.
That's always been what we're about here
and
Cruz, at the Wright Flyer.
And Cruz taking that position, it really shows what kind of person he truly is. He understands. He has class. And remember when Sarah Palin was, with John McCain, and people would say, "Oh, well, she's this," and she actually exhibited some classy actions and characteristics and traits. I'm not going to take that away from her.
No, I won't either.
Now what it is again, she must have been here in Flint at some point in time,
and had the water,
because obviously, it's clouding her judgment is what it's doing. And I think she's doing this possibly to reinvigorate her career, possibly maybe as a nod for the VP position. Possibility,
But Trump came out and said that she was talking too long. So that's already a bad sign for her. But I actually have the clip here of her talking, and I'm only going to torture us with a little bit. And
Please.
So I'll switch this over to the monitor so we can all hear it.
Great to be in Iowa. We're here just thawing out. Todd and I and a couple of our friends here from Alaska, lending our support for the next president of our great United States of America, Donald J. Trump. Mr. Trump, you're right. Look back there in the press box. Heads are spinning. Media heads are spinning. This is going to be so much fun.
Ya hoser. It's going to be so much fun, ya hoser. What is this metallic thing I'm wearing, ya hoser? Cold beige. I'm off my meds again.
Oh, you betcha. Yeah, so much fun, you betcha. I have a great idea for a counter to that. Let's just play, parts of Fargo looped over and over and over again. Why not? It'd be the same thing, we're going to put the mainstream media and the establishment in the wood chipper. You betcha. Yep, they're going to steal a Buick and all that good stuff, and we're just going to chop them up and put them across the Great White North. You betcha.
You know what? If you put her in a wood chipper wearing whatever the hell that thing is she's wearing, you'd break the blades.
Oh, the auto safe would just, it would disengage, and you hear screeching, grinding, almost like a soundtrack from hell, the whole gnashing of teeth type thing.
Oh gosh. But there's more, folks. You just can't escape this. So here it goes.
You ready to make America great again? We all have a part in this. We all have a responsibility. Looking around.
Backstabbing people. Yeah, that's our part. Backstabbing.
You farm families and teachers and teamsters and cops and cooks.
And drunkards and my son going to jail again. Folks, I do have to bring that up because she actually came out when she was stump thumping in Oklahoma and said that, well, it was the military that did that to her son. You know, or Obama did it to her son. Well, her son came back from Iraq. What was it, 2009? We're talking 9 years, or not 9.
7 years ago.
7 years ago now?
Yeah.
He's had time to get treatment. And folks, what he was charged with was punching and kicking his girlfriend. And so he's had
battery.
Yeah. He's had time to get treatment. To blame Obama for that is no different than Obama coming out and trying to blame everything on Bush. Now, Bush was no conservative. Bush did not stand up for the needs of the American people, and he did lead us into the path of what became Obama. But he can't be held responsible for all of this, and I don't think Obama can be held responsible for track. So what, was she running track and field when she named her son Track? And then we have Bristol Palin, who has a track record of her own. Folks, when you actually stop and remember that the natural order of things in how our government is laid out and established, the starting bedrock of it all is the family. If you can't keep your family in order, and if you can't instill values in them or seek corrective actions before it boils over, why should we trust your judgment for who should be president?
Well, it's not only that, but look at the age of her son Track and her daughter Bristol. If those values were instilled, and I'm not saying they weren't, but at the same time, again, you can't go and blame somebody else for somebody else's actions. They know this. And it really makes me question her when she wants to put the blame on somebody else for her son's actions, kicking and beating his girlfriend, whatever the case is. You know, that's kind of like having two neighbors. One neighbor has a dog that just won't stop barking, will never shut up. The other neighbor has a cat that likes to come over and, you know, mark its territory every chance it gets on your property, specifically your windshield of your truck. And you get so fed up with it, you don't know how to handle the situation. So when the dog barks, you just go outside and shoot your neighbor's cat. And you blame the cat, you know, you blame it all on, well, the dog was barking, or vice versa. You go out and shoot the dog because the neighbor's cat came and sprayed your windshield. It's the same thing. It really is the same thing. Her son made a choice to break the law, and she wants to blame Obama. Now, we're not defending Obama, but here's the thing. This goes across the board. I don't care who anybody is. When you make a decision to do something, own up to it. I don't care if you're the president. I don't care if you're the dog catcher. I don't care if you're clergy within the Catholic Church. Makes no difference at all. You don't go blaming other people for your screw-ups. Period. No. Man up. And if you do, this is what really bothers me. It's not so much the fact that people don't want to own up to their mistakes and to their, you know, transgressions and wrongdoings. It's when the parents, and we've seen this time and time again, whether it's Michael Brown's mom, my baby is just a gentle giant. He's a gentle giant. That his stepdad, burn it down. Burn it down. You know, it's no different than her, Sarah Palin, blaming Obama for this. It's no different. No different at all. That makes her part of
the problem.
The establishment.
Oh, yes.
And see, with the establishment, I think there is an establishment outside of the original and true establishment of the United States Constitution. There's a quasi-establishment of political correctness and revisionism, indoctrination, Pan Am exercenses, bread and circuses. She is doing the exact same thing of those people that she rails against by doing that.
Well, hell, she's doing the same thing with those people by endorsing and stumping for John McCain.
Sure.
After he did everything that he did. But here she goes on to say that, well, it was, Trump's ability to negotiate that makes her support him. I've got that right here, and it's coming up right now.
In chief has decided that America will lead from behind. And he who would negotiate deals, kind of like with the skills of a community organizer, maybe organizing a neighborhood tea. Yeah, well, he deciding that no, America would apologize. And as part of the deal, as the enemy sends a message to the rest of the world that they capture and we kowtow and we apologize.
Get to the point, you woman.
We are ready for a change. We are ready, and our troops deserve the best. A new commander-in-chief whose track record of success has proven he is the master at the art.
Yep, 4 bankruptcies. He's the master of the deal, all right.
Only one candidate's record of success proves he is the master of the art of the deal. He is beholden to no one but we, the people. How refreshed.
Actually, he's beholden to his hairpiece, and I'm sorry. I just can't take any more of that grating cheese grater voice talking about the hairpiece.
You know what she sounds like she's doing? She sounds like she's sitting in front of a giant mega church nursery kindergarten class reading, Dr. Seuss or the Chronicles of Farouk Tardia, whatever the case is. She has it's just that tone, like 2 cats, fornicating on a chalkboard. It needs to stop.
When we are facing the problem of the governor in Oregon, what's her name? I forget it right now. Saying
doesn't matter.
saying that the federal government needs to come and just push the militia out when there are clear violations of the Constitution. She's talking about somebody who does business deals. We don't need somebody who does business deals. We need somebody who adheres to the Constitution, somebody that relies on the Constitution, someone who understands the Constitution. And thus far, Donald J. Trump ain't it. That's why he's doing this intellectually disingenuous arguments about Ted Cruz's citizenship. That's why he's going off into La La Land and bull excrementia land to try and obfuscate the truth, to try and distract the voters from what really matters. And that's not what we need. And his track record of leadership, what track record of leadership? He was on a reality TV show. Didn't Palin have one of those things too? I think so.
Well, I was just going to bring that up. Let's look at the track record. She just blatantly lied to the American people. She says, well, he's the only one, don't you know? Chalkboard. Has she not seen Ted Cruz's track record?
Well, she certainly supported his track record when she was endorsing him for the Senate.
Sure, getting deals done. The master of the deal. How many cases or briefs did Ted Cruz author in front of the Supreme Court? 80 plus. How many oral arguments did he present in front of the Supreme Court? What was it, 40? Now people say, oh, he only had 9 and he lost 3 of them. It doesn't matter. How many does Donald Trump have? 0.
None.
0.
And
how many deals has Donald Trump negotiated? How many deals has Donald Trump negotiated in regards to defending the United States Constitution?
None.
0.
But with oral arguments in front of the Supreme Court, it's very difficult to win. It's very difficult to even get there.
Yes.
And he was the most successful Solicitor General that the state of Texas has ever had. Period. Bar none. He is brilliant. And when you stop and think about it, he was also working consistently with our current governor, Greg Abbott.
Mhm.
And folks, I have a feeling Abbott will endorse Cruz when the time is right. I do not see Cruz losing. I see this as a temporary setback. But do you really want somebody endorsing you who is running out endorsing John McCain, but then is claiming, I'm anti-establishmentarian? No, she isn't.
Randy, I don't even see this as a setback.
Yeah.
What I see this is think of it in terms of a poker game.
Mhm.
And I've made this reference before. Again, Ted Cruz is only allowing people to see what's in his hand when he wants to see it, when
Right.
he wants them to see it. What Trump has done with his new hairstylist has tried to call a bluff, and guess what? It's not going to work, because when you call someone's bluff because you think they're bluffing, and then it turns out that they're holding all the cards, you're going to lose every time.
Oh,
Every
yes.
time. This is not a setback for Cruz. This is nothing more than it's
Palin showing her true colors.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, people before said, well, she wasn't given a fair shake with McCain. You know what? We had that view. She was stifled. However, I think it was a good thing at that point in time. Now, looking back in hindsight, it probably was a good thing. It probably was a good thing. And I believe it was a good thing for McCain to lose, as well as Romney. You know why? Because we wouldn't have somebody like Ted Cruz running for the candidacy.
And what we're seeing with respect to the electorate in the United States of America right now, why somebody like a Donald J. Trump is resonating, is there is blind anger. I think that is something that Glenn Beck has gotten right. The American people are mad as hell. And who can blame them? When you see the detente wing of the gutless opposition party, the GOP, which I now lump Sarah Palin in, and I lump Donald Trump into it because I don't know if you heard about this, but failed presidential candidate Bob Dole
Yes.
came out and said that Cruz would be so detrimental for the country, he would much rather have Donald Trump. The so-called establishment, but folks, remember, there is no such thing as the establishment. There's the detente wing of the gutless opposition party, or GOP, the feckless, spineless weasels. They are consolidating behind Trump. Why? Because they hate Cruz more. Why? Because Cruz is a consistent, constitutional conservative.
Well, it's the same thing they did with Duncan D. Hunter.
Oh, yes.
Who else was it? Tom Tancredo.
Yep.
There's a few select other individuals that were consistent, conservative, had the Constitution in mind for everyone, not themselves, for everyone. And on a side note, I do want to give props to Dr. Carson for suspending his campaign, not because we don't think he would be a great leader or anything like that, but because of the tragedy that happened with one of his campaign staff.
Who was killed in that car accident, was it?
Yeah, Mr. Joplin. Our
he was
prayers and
23.
condolences. Our prayers and condolences go out to the Joplin family,
Absolutely.
and the friends and whatnot. And see, I will say this about Ben Carson: he does have integrity. He absolutely has integrity. He put himself aside and put his campaign aside because it was the right thing to do. I will give him that much. I will give him that credit all day long. In fact, if that would have happened, God forbid, to any of the candidates, even El Jefe or Dumbo Rubio, any of them, even if something would have happened to the Hillary campaign team, something this detrimental, the same would have been said for them. You know why?
Yeah.
Because it's the right thing to do. It shows integrity and it shows class. Now, whether or not those other individuals would have done this, we can't say for sure.
Sure.
But
again, you have to remember the human element of it. You have to remember the human element of it.
Yeah.
And that is part of the detrimental aspect of it. And that's part of the problem I have with Trump. The way that he's just attacking Cruz, the way that he is being intellectually disingenuous. Did he even put out any words for that for the Joplin family?
I haven't seen any. I'm not to say that he hasn't, but I haven't seen
I mean,
it.
I'm not casting aspersions here. I haven't seen it. I do believe I've seen Cruz hit Twitter and saying that thoughts and prayers were with him.
Sure.
And Dr. Carson's integrity will be marked because
Absolutely.
that's quite a remarkable characteristic to have.
No, it's an unbelievable characteristic to have. And here's the thing: if more people had that kind of courage to do that, because that's a true testament to courage there. So we applaud Dr. Carson for doing that. It's just, and again, like you said, who else has said a peep about this, offered their condolences? I mean, I know Cruz has. I haven't seen anything from Trump. Not to say that he hasn't or won't, but it's one of those things. And like you said, it brings the human element to this, and it shows true compassion and sincerity.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a difficult choice to make, but he made the right choice.
Sure.
Sure.
And nobody should ever fault him for that, and he should never fault himself for that.
No, and he ran a good run. He really did. I didn't agree with everything that he stood for, but he at least showed a willingness to try and learn and try to adhere to the Constitution, and I can't fault him for that. Now, what I can fault somebody like Donald J. Trump for is like this tweet from 2013 that I found on Wright Scoop. This comes from August 29th, 2013. Donald J. Trump, at real Donald Trump, so it's him. Congress must protect our borders first. Amnesty should be done only if the border is secure and illegal immigration, which doesn't exist, has stopped. So he's still saying, if you really parse his words, and I know he struggles with words, that amnesty should still be done once the border is secure.
Well, how can you have amnesty? And again, this is what people don't understand with the whole immigration thing, the illegal aliens. And we're not going to refer to it as illegal immigration again because it doesn't exist. That would be like us referring to, I don't know, He-Man as the governor or the mayor of Flint. So it's just he says amnesty should be done only when the borders are closed and the illegal immigration thing has stopped. Well, if you follow the laws on the books regarding immigration, all of specifically Title 8 U.S. Code sections 1323 through 1329, you follow those laws, which are already on the books, and enforce them, you can't have amnesty.
No.
You can't have it. It cannot exist. But yet Trump wants this, he wants the laws on the books followed, but he still wants amnesty. Well, you can't have that. That's like, it's simple physics. It's two things cannot occupy the same space and time. You can't have amnesty and the laws being followed. You can't do it.
Now, here's something interesting. This is from Business Insider. It says, according to a 1990 Vanity Fair interview, Ivana Trump once told her lawyer, Michael Kennedy, that her husband, Donald J. Trump, kept a book of Hitler's speeches near his bed. And here's a quote. Last April, perhaps in a surge of Czech nationalism, Ivana Trump told her lawyer, Michael Kennedy, that from time to time her husband reads a book or her ex-husband now, of Hitler's collected speeches. My New Order, which he keeps in a cabinet by his bed. Hitler's speeches from his earliest days through the phony war of 1939. Wow. Now, what was Hitler known for when he was running to take control of Germany? He was known as a great orator, that he could give great speeches, but they didn't always have great substance. He struggled when it came to substance because he didn't want people to know what his substance was. You could read it in Mein Kampf, much like how trumpeters today keep saying you should read The Art of the Deal. But as for what his real political ideologies and goals were, he never fully shared that in his speeches. And maybe it's unfair to make the connection here, but that's his ex-wife saying it, and maybe she's just doing it to hurt him, but phew, that's a pretty strong indictment.
Well, there has to be some validity to it, because, I mean, that to make that kind of, allegation, if it was a false one, that is a fairly creative allegation. It truly is. I mean, that's something that's completely off the wall. So there has to be some kind of validity to it. Now, all to strengthen that validity, all one has to do is look at Trump. Now, he is not a great orator, nowhere near that of which Adolf Hitler was. But as far as, his grammar and his sentences, I mean, it's not really there. But, to correct myself, I don't know, but it's there, but it's not. Type
circular reasoning is circular.
Exactly. But the tone and the method of delivery are spot on.
Oh, absolutely.
Remember, if anybody has ever heard audio clips of Adolf Hitler giving a speech, projected voice, anger, tension, tone, so on and so forth. It's all there.
I can do the pattern. I can do the pattern right now. First of all, he would make the audience wait. So there'd be a period of silence. And then he'd start softly so that they would have to stress to hear him. And then he would pick up the tone. And as he picked up the tone, he would pick up the pace until he would work somebody into a frenzy to understand what he was saying. And then he could mesmerize an audience. That is how you do it. And then, as you notice, I fell silent again. That is all part of the pattern. And it really is a type of mass hypnosis, because people get into the type of music and the type of energy that is being espoused. You know where this came from? It's funny because we mentioned Zygmunt Dobbs and his book, Keynes at Harvard. It came from that and I draw a blank on his name, but he was a Harvard-trained German banker who coached Hitler on how to do things off of a Harvard football rally. That's where all the musics, the banners, all of that. What was his name? Hohenberger? I'll have to look it up.
Yeah.
But
we'll get back to you on that.
But what it really comes down to is he was telling Hitler to do kind of a Wagner act. And remember, Hitler was very, very much so involved with Wagner, Richard Wagner. He loved the music. He would see himself as the heroes of those Teutonic tales, which are just a bunch of rubbish. But, I mean, great music, but the stories were just old fairy tales. But he literally saw that. And it's that type of raw emotionalism you always see with socialists.
Sure. I'm looking here at Eric Jan, 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 Hanussen. Hanussen?
Yeah, Honessen.
Honessen, yeah.
Yeah, I knew it was an H. So, you see, folks, there is that connection. But, again, one of the problems that I have with a lot of what the people who support Donald J. Trump say is that, well, he could make America, trim the fat. He could run it like a business. We are not a business. We are not a business. We are a nation. We are a nation with a social contract. And you know what a lot of businesses do, including Trump? They breach contracts. The last thing I want to see is our Constitution breached any more than it already has been.
Sure. And if, someone was to say, because I actually wrote a paper on this for one of my classes, about the United States being run as a business, it was to the such of, like you mentioned, we have our contract or our executive summary, if you will, and the outline of that business is the Constitution, period. And you have three different branches of government, which would be three different, levels of business, all kind of working kind of as a board of directors type thing, working back and forth with each other. In a way, it could be shaped up as a business model. However, the way that Donald Trump is speaking about running the country as a business is he wants to do it on a business and monetization side. He's always talking about fair trade this, fair trade that, ripping into China. China owns our debt. He's looking at this from a CEO standpoint rather than adhering to the Constitution and looking at it from that way.
I found an article about Constitution.
So, thank you, Siri. So, yeah. Go back to your push cart, okay?
Yeah.
So, I lost my train. I could see the country being, set up and have a business type structure,
sure,
to where we the people are basically the shareholders of that business. The shareholders, if you piss them off, they're going to dump their shares, i.e. their votes, somewhere else. And they're going to get rid of the board of directors and so on and so forth. So that's, I can look at it from that standpoint. But again, Trump doesn't look at running it from that standpoint. He's all about making money. He's even said it himself. If there's a deal that's going bad and I know it's going to be a bad deal, I get out before I lose anything.
Yeah.
I don't want to take that chance with somebody who's looking at a crisis that we have to where, I don't know, there's talks of, another superpower or an axis of superpowers getting together, like China, Russia, and some European nations or whatever, people that have weapons of mass destruction to possibly do something to our country. I don't want him to say, oh, we're going to stand down, we're going to get out, because it might be bad if we continue to go with that. No, that tells me that he's not really sure and he's hesitant about making right decisions.
Right.
That's just me, but I don't trust him in that sense. He doesn't have a proper working knowledge of the Constitution. He just doesn't. I haven't heard him expound on it. I haven't heard him exhibit any knowledge of the Constitution other than what he was told to regarding to the 14th Amendment. And that may be even questionable if we look into it further.
Sure. And, when everybody keeps sitting here saying that because he knows how to cut deals, like Sarah Palin did, I like what Ted Cruz said in response. And this comes from Wright's scoop, and this was in Manchester, New Hampshire. He said, he being Cruz, if you want someone to cut deals with Reid, Pelosi, and Schumer, then Donald Trump is your guy. And I think that speaks exactly to what you were just talking about, Jeremy. That business mentality, if you will. It goes to show that there is this type of disconnect with respect to Trump, and that he would cut deals with Reid or Pelosi or any of your democratic socialists to get what he wants, if he thinks that it would benefit him politically. Again, it's with him, I think he would see it as his little personal piggy bank.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's look at Harry Reid. I mean, how many dirty, they don't call him dingy Harry Reid for nothing. Look at all the deals, specifically real estate deals out there in Nevada and whatnot, because he wanted this super rail to go through and all this, a lot of shady dealings, having to do with eminent domain, so on and so forth. Oh, gee, eminent domain. Trumpunzel has a lot to do with eminent domain. And I want to go back to what with Bob Dole talking about, Ted Cruz would be detrimental to this and that. What Bob Dole's hitting on is subliminally, he is talking about how Donald Trump got some of these deals done, like being able to file bankruptcy 4 times in 11 years, grabbing up land for his properties and hotels and casinos through eminent domain. In order to do that kind of stuff, you have to grease certain wheels and palms. Trump has always done that. In fact, he even admitted it himself. Yeah, I've given money. I've greased the palms of certain people because that's what got the deal done. You know what? I don't want you as commander-in-chief paying off people to get things done because you think it's going to be a benefit for somebody. I want you as commander-in-chief to enforce the Constitution and the laws of the land made in pursuance thereof, because that is your job.
Right. And if people actually think that Trump would be able to win, I mean, right-wing news posted a historical chart which shows the unfavorables of other famous or infamous politicians who have high unfavorable numbers. And now here it goes. Barack Obama, favorability 47, unfavorability 48, last 3 months. Hillary Clinton, favorability 43, unfavorability 51, December to now. Sharon Angle, 41-53, October 10th. And you see Jimmy Carter, John McCain, John Kerry, George Bush, Walter Mondale, Christy O'Donnell, and then Donald Trump. Favorability 33, unfavorability 58% since November of 2015.
Well,
that's
that goes
staggering.
That goes right in line with what we've mentioned before. Right out of the gate.
Well, you know who it matches? Jimmy Carter in 1980. 33-58, exact same numbers.
Yeah. And again, it goes right to what we were saying. Trump, right out of the gate, had a high favorability. He never reached above that. In fact, he's actually dropped in favorability.
Yeah.
And Ted Cruz, right out of the gate, low favorability, but incrementally, step by step, gaining more favorability on a consistent basis. The consistency between Trump and Cruz from beginning of the campaigns until now, if you were to look at it as a line graph, a line chart, and Trump had a blue line, Cruz had a red line, you would just see a red line just continuously going up, not flatlining, just continuously going up, inch by inch, little bit by little bit. Trump started off high and he was flatlined.
Yeah.
So people say, "Oh, well, he's gaining favor." No, he's not. He's consistently stagnant. And that's how people need to look at those things. Again, Cruz, the underdog, right from the get-go, is the underdog, and a lot of people are still considering him to be the underdog because they're not even looking at Trump or Cruz. They're wanting someone like Marco Dumbo-eared Rubio. They're completely ignoring the situation.
Yeah.
Trump has not been consistently gaining points.
Well, hell, Trump hasn't been consistent on anything. Remember in our other episode, we played those clips from 1999 where he had exactly the polar opposite positions of what he holds today. How can we trust him? And, I love this. A lot of the Trumpeteers go out there and say, well, his past doesn't matter. It's what the future will be. How do you judge what he'll do in the future, much less the present, if you don't analyze what he did in the past?
Using that logic by them, if the past doesn't matter, then drop all the nonsense about Ted Cruz not being a natural born citizen.
Absolutely. But you see, the hypocrisy doesn't faze them. They don't see it. They don't comprehend it. You know what they remind me of is a bunch of Barack Obama's supporters, the hope and change Nazis that we saw in 2008 and again in 2012. They don't care about the Constitution, or they play lip service to it, but when it comes down to it, they just want blind vengeance. They want blind vengeance.
Oh, we have to have change, don't you know? You betcha.
Again, with that whole our country great again. Yeah. I've got to take offense, and I know we don't really care about offense, but I'm going to say this. I take offense with his slogan, "Make America Great Again." America never stopped being great, because what made America great is still there, the Constitution. It will stop being great if we don't go back to adhering to it, if we don't make that the core of our representative Republican form of government again, then absolutely we will falter. But to say to make America great again infers that America stopped being great. No, the people of America never stopped being great. The Constitution never stopped being great. The federal government divorced itself from the Constitution, and Trump is advocating doing even more of that, doubling down on the illegal executive orders.
Well, I have a recommendation for Trump and Sarah Palin. Why don't you guys go, come on back to Flint. Just come on into Flint and pour yourselves a great old big glass of Aqua Flinta water. Why not? Grab yourself a nice big glass of Aqua Flinta water and chug a lug, because that is the only thing that is going to, whether keep you the way you are, maybe change you. I don't know. It really doesn't matter at this point. It's like Randy said, the United States of America, since its inception, has been great and will remain great, as well as the Constitution. And it will remain great so long as I'm drawing a breath.
Yeah.
That's how that works.
Yeah. So, in other words, it just shows how meaningless his campaign slogan is, because it really doesn't apply to the country. And again, that's why we say it's so important to pay attention to the types of games of semantics that these dubious politicians play, because they make it sound good. They always do that. That's what Zygmunt Dobbs warned us of. And they are banking on the idea that the American people are just going to be so caught up into the doldrums of their day-to-day life, trying to survive, that they're not going to pay attention to that, because they don't have the political capital or energy to expend upon it. And that's, I think, exactly what we're getting from Trump, because Trump changes time and again. He's like a ping pong ball.
Well, and apparently he's the ping pong ball has been hit just a little too hard when he brought.
So that's why his hair looks like what it does.
Sure. Yeah. Well, when Sarah Palin came on the scene, I mean, it's just for the life of me. And again, I'm sure she's a great gal. She's attractive, she's smart, she's,
except when she wears a jacket like that. That's not attractive. She should shoot whoever did her wardrobe that day.
Well, she might go out and, trap them, track and trap them. Who knows? But yeah, I know. That's her fishing, her fishing jacket. That's what she wears to go fishing. That's it. Yeah, she's a walking fishing lure. I just don't. Oh, you betcha. Yeah. it just doesn't make any sense to me why somebody who has been bolstered up as being a smart individual, knew when to get out of politics, took time off, did this, did that, supported Ted Cruz in his endeavors, supported him. Now all of a sudden, Cruz isn't good enough because Cruz can't cut any deals. The thing is this is what has got her goat. Cruz will not negotiate on the Constitution. He will not negotiate on freedoms and liberties. They are non-negotiable. He's not looking to cut any deals. In fact, Trump would walk into a business boardroom or the war room and say, this is how it's going to be. These are finite. They're there. You cannot take them away. And there is nothing you can offer me or this country or anybody sitting in our legislature or in our courts that is going to cause me to take action or to persuade them to remove them. That is being a master of the deal when it comes down to things. Money doesn't mean jack anything. It doesn't. I don't care how much money Trump has. It doesn't matter. It's just money. That's all it is.
He can't buy the Constitution. He simply cannot buy the Constitution. It's not for sale.
Absolutely not for sale. Absolutely not for sale. It's priceless, meaning he can't afford it.
Yeah. And, it just goes to show the way that he used his liberal sister judge. I hate to use that term, but let's say his Fabian socialist sister judge to use eminent domain to procure properties that rightfully belong to somebody else at pennies on the dollar. Does that respect our fundamental and unalienable right to keep and hold property? No. It absolutely does not. It's totally violative of that. And it's in line with his progressive views. He has been a progressive his entire adult life. Why would he just all of a sudden do a 180 on his political beliefs? Well, folks, if you look at somebody like Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, he was against private property ownership. But what was the slogan they used to get the peasants to support the Bolsheviki? It was land, bread, and work. Land, private ownership.
Yeah, as to prop it up, again, propagandize, somebody jockeying for political position. And that's what Trump is doing. That's what he's doing. But the thing is, with Trump, he could jockey into all the positions he wants. The amount of Aquanet he has gluing that bleached
Skunk
moose
fur.
pelt, that skunk fur to his head, it's just it kind of looks like a buoy out there, bouncing around up in the waves, bouncing back and forth, bobbing up and down. That's what it looks like to me. He's not sure-footed. He doesn't understand many of the things he speaks about. Oh, I'm pro-choice. No, you're not. Well, yeah, I'm pro-choice. Oh, so you're against
Life.
the right to the right to life. No. I'm pro-life, but I'm pro. You cannot be in the leftist sense pro-choice and be in the conservative sense pro-life. Again, you cannot have two entities occupying the same space and time like that. It just cannot happen.
And then his position on taxes, remember that he wanted, what was it, like a 40%?
14.25%, I think is what it was. Business tax. And then even more. It's like, really? You know what? The Lord God doesn't even demand more than 10%.
Well, Trump, when he quoted the Bible wrong, it's
2 Corinthians. Walk into a bar.
Yeah. They order a drink.
Yeah.
And the bartender rubs the bar down with skunk fur. Wait, what? But it just, when you look at Trump and everything that he's trying to espouse now and to convince everyone of, this whole notion of the speech, or the interview that he gave on Larry King back in 1999, he said ultimately no one should have guns, but until that happens, it should be allowed for people to have guns. He's always walked this double-edged thing. He's spoken out of both sides of his mouth. And remember what Zygmunt Dobbs said about the way that John Maynard Keynes had written his economic philosophy in these vague and ambiguous terms in order to obfuscate the truth, to hide his true meaning from people. That is what your Fabian socialists always do. That is the type of mentality they espouse, because that is how they can dupe the people. And folks, that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to dupe you.
Yeah. And, I just can't. Going back to this whole thing, ultimately nobody should have guns.
Yeah.
Meaning that, well, if I had my way, nobody will have firearms. Nobody will have guns.
Right.
Now, but yet he claims that he's pro Second Amendment. Again, I'm pro-choice, but I'm pro-life. I'm pro Second Amendment, but I'm anti Second Amendment. I'm pro toupee, anti skunk hair. I don't get it. It just doesn't make sense. It is not logical.
Unless you stop and think about it, that he's just putting out a fake persona. A fake persona that he thinks will sell him to the people, and then if he can sell himself to the people, then he can get whatever he wants and then leave from it. And that's what he did with the bankruptcies. He used alter egos to refinance his companies. And then because it was an alter ego, he could try and run that little line of, well, it wasn't me, it was my companies. Well, not exactly. That's not how the game works. Who controlled those entities?
Wouldn't could it be said that Donald Trump's ideology could be, I don't know, like a rusty, dull Occam's razor?
Well, except Occam's razor is simple, and nothing that comes out of Trump's mouth is simple. It's convoluted, repeating, and did I mention that it may also say the same thing that it already did? And I don't know, maybe not, but yeah, it does say what it already did, and it did I say it repeats?
Yeah, so it would, complex, convoluted, so a dull, rusty Occam's razor. Yeah, okay, that works.
Yeah.
I mean, clogged with,
skunk fur.
Skunk hair. Yeah.
Folks, we the reason we laugh about this is just how emotional the Trumpeteers have become. For anyone just speaking out against Donald J. Trump. Folks, Donald J. Trump is not God. He may think he's God, but he's not God. And he is not the know-all, end-all, be-all of business. I'm sorry, he's just not. If he was, he'd be richer than Bill Gates.
Mm-hmm.
He'd be richer than Warren Buffett. As I think, aren't those two richer than he is? I believe they are. How did he get his money? Well, Woody Guthrie's father wrote lyrics about John Trump, or Donald Trump's father, I think it was John, about how he was running around trying to stir up animosity between races in his buildings in the 1950s. And, the songwriter putting it in is a communist, but I wouldn't doubt it that much, seeing as he had rented the apartment from Trump.
Yeah,
Trump
it's
daddy, that is.
Huggy Trump.
Yeah.
I've got an article up right here that I just came across. It's website called Power. It's Powerline Blog. So let's take this with a grain of salt, but it's actually Jim Garrity. This is Jim Garrity dives down the memory hole to remind us what Donald Trump was saying just a few short years ago in an interview with Larry King. Again, I'm Larry King. Hello, everybody. I'm Larry King. I'm going to talk to Donald Trump, and maybe he's not going to throw me off his ivory tower, but if he does, I'll be bungee jumping off his golden locks.
Sure. Donald Trump's father's name is Fred Trump, and Guthrie once lived in a building managed by Fred Trump and penned an unpublished song in which he accuses Fred Trump of stirring up racial hurt or hate. And this was found by a Professor Will Kaufman. Well, that's kind of interesting.
I'm looking at this interview, this exchange, and it says, here's what Trump was saying that day about President Obama on April 15, 2009, which, according to this, is largely seen as the birth date of the Tea Party movement. Well, actually happened long before that with radio show, I believe John and Ken show out in California, where they had, the heads on a stick type thing. But we'll just, for the sake of argument, go with this. Trump says, well, I think he's sort of a guy that just, has a wonderful personality, a good speaker, somebody that people trust. And I also think that the comparison with the predecessor is so different. It's huge. It's so huge that it really has made a great impact on people. Talking about Obama being, elected in this nays, I think he's really doing a nice job in terms of representation of this country, really. And he represents such a large part of the country. What part would that be? To think that a black man was going to be elected president. I watched television for years where the great political analysts were saying maybe in 50, maybe in 100 years, here's a man that not only got elected, I think he's doing a really great job. Again, with the nonsensical drivel that is just,
it's the art of the deal.
Yeah. Now the sad part is that he can't just do a good job. He's got to do a great job. Okay, because if he does a good job, that's not good enough for this country. That's how bad this country has become.
Yeah, and just to point again, the Oregon governor, Kate Brown, is calling for federal officials to take action against the armed militia group. She's saying that this spectacle of lawlessness must end. And she added that the occupation of the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge has cost taxpayers almost $500,000. How?
I can't explain that.
It's like, have we gone to the Twilight Zone here? Obviously. And it's ridiculous. But when we have serious stuff like this happening, where the true tenets of federalism are under assault in this country, we have Sarah Palin talking about a deal. I'm going to go back to this clip. And so we see, when we have all of this crap happening over there in Oregon, all of the stuff in Flint, this is what Sarah Palin's concerned about. Here it comes.
Positioned to make America great again. Are you ready for that, Iowa? No more pussyfooting around. Our troops deserve the best. You deserve the best.
And how are we defining the best? Has he talked about any of this? No.
Well, you brought up music earlier, and I swear I'm going to tie this in, and it's going to be so poignant. She talks about the best. You want the best? You can have the best. Well, guess what? The band Kiss beat you to it, because they've opened many a shows. In fact, I've been to one of their shows, and the opening line, the opening of the show, you wanted the best, you got the best. So guess what? I'm expecting Gene Simmons to kind of, file some kind of copyright infringement lawsuit here against the Trump campaign, for, plagiarism of their slogan. Seriously, I wonder how big of a gulp of aqua flinta she took. Come on.
Yeah, she took a big enough one to say this, and this is just great too.
A member of the GOP, this is what we have to remember in this very contested, competitive, great primary race. Trump's candidacy, it has exposed not just that tragic, the ramifications of that betrayal of a transformation of our country, but two, he has exposed the complicity on both sides of the aisle that has enabled it. Okay?
He's been the complicity on both sides of the aisle because he speaks out of both sides of his mouth. Hey, Sarah, pull your head from your posterior. I know that you think that's going rogue, but you're not an ostrich. That metallic coat you're wearing may make you think you're a metallic ostrich, but you're not. Just remove your head from your posterior. Save us this worthless drivel, please.
I'm guessing it was probably a tanker full. I don't know. I mean, that's just where does she come up with this?
She probably had an IV stuck in her arm filled with aqua flintina, just dripping in it.
It's almost, you know what? It is as incoherent as many of the things that Trump has said. It truly is. She's putting him up on a pedestal and rambling on about nothing. Nothing. She's trying to create this whole facade of Trump. Oh, look at him. Oh, there he is, don't you? Oh, he looks so great, his hair, the wind can blow. He can, he wouldn't even have to turn his head in a hurricane. His hair would just become just this giant spinnaker sail, and he could go out sword fishing. Yeah, it'd be great. Come on.
Yeah.
Why?
Why?
I don't get it. I really don't.
Oh, and then here is from Tulsa, where she talks about her son. This is just fascinating. If I were her publicist, I would say don't even bring him up, since she herself is not running for office. And this may give credence to this whole thing of where she wants something like the vice presidency. Here it comes.
Our vets and you deserve a commander-in-chief who will respect what it is that our forces go through and would never leave them behind. A commander-in-chief who would never lie to the families of the fallen.
Guess that throws Trump out.
Talk about a commander-in-chief who will never leave our men and our women behind. Let me get a little bit personal on this. I'm talking about not leaving our wounded warriors behind also. Our wounded warriors who come home from the battlefield bringing new battles with them. Our wounded warriors, sometimes in body and in mind, coming back different than when they left for the war zone. I can talk personally about this. I guess it's kind of the elephant in the room because my own family going through what we're going through today with my son, a combat vet, having served in a Stryker brigade, fighting for you all, America, in the war zone.
And fighting his girlfriend for us too, apparently.
But my son, like so many others, they come back a bit different. They come back hardened. They come back wondering if there is that respect for what it is that their fellow soldiers and airmen and every other member of the military so sacrificially have given to this country. And that starts from the top. It's a shame that our military personnel even have to wonder if they have to question if they're respected anymore. It starts from the top. The question.
What the hell does that have to do with the fact that her son kicked his girlfriend while she was down, punched her in the face, then grabbed his AR-15, waved it at the police, and then threatened to shoot himself? What does that have to do with President Obama? Yes, I'm sorry that he has PTSD. It's very bad. But why wasn't he getting treatment? Certainly you, well-connected as you are, Mrs. Palin, could have gotten him the treatment that he needed, because he came home back in 2009. You know, the World War II generation, the Vietnam generation, the Korea generation, and Gulf War I. Hell, my friends that fought in Iraq and Afghanistan, they came home. Yes, they suffered from this, but they worked through it. And you know what? He doesn't run around beating his ex-wife or his girlfriend. This speaks more to a problem that is at the home, because we see that when you look at how government is built, it starts with a family. And Bristol Palin has had problems. This is not the first time Track had problems. And in fact, didn't Track have problems before he left for the military? Wasn't he put in the military in part so to instill him with a sense of discipline? But I don't see discipline. And I know that it may be wrong for me to say this, but I'm seeing too many coincidences here.
How is it that, you know, if there's a discipline problem before he even goes, and then after he comes back, and it's not corrected, and again, I have friends, I've worked around people, and still do work around individuals who were in the military, have issues. Everybody has issues. But if that individual doesn't want to take care of those issues, or even if they do, if there's no support from the family, guess what? Those issues are still going to be there. Has nothing to do with the president. See, this is the thing. And again, folks, I don't care who the individual is, what office they hold, what political party they represent. Do not cast assumptions or blame on somebody who has nothing to do with that. Well, he, did this. No. To say that, then you would have to blame him for every single individual that has served in the military under his command while he's in the White House that comes back and has problems. But no, she wants to single this out and draw the attention to her son. Why? Well, now, Sarah Palin, you are using your son as a pogo stick to jump higher links up in social status and political stature. That's what you're doing. You know what? You are a bad mother.
Yeah.
You are a horrible mother.
And we don't say this lightly. Because we don't like to cast stones like this. We have sins of our own.
I've already walked outside of my glass house, so I'm going to cast all the stones I want.
Yeah.
That's how that works. Because, see, here's the thing. Everybody has had problems. All families have problems. There's no such thing as the perfect family. If there was, then it would be modeled and society would adapt to it.
Yeah.
But because we are humans, we make mistakes. There's no such thing as perfection on this earth. Ever. Nowhere. There is nothing that is perfect.
In
But-
fact, the only thing that has ever come close to perfection, because it was divinely inspired by Providence, is our Constitution.
And even that is not perfect. Why?
No.
Because the founding fathers understood that perfection does not truly exist. That's why the preamble says a more perfect union, as to aspire towards perfection, which will
Right.
which can never be attained on this earth.
Right.
That's why we have the ratification process in Article 5 of the Constitution to ratify and amend the Constitution to try to reach that level. It's an ongoing thing.
Mm-hmm.
But Sarah Palin, the bad mother that she is, how dare you? How dare you? You're sitting here casting a stone and aspersions on President Obama because of the way our military is treated, and you're not wrong in doing that. However, where your wrong is coming is turning right around and doing the exact same thing you're railing against. Once again, you are discrediting and abusing your child, your son Track, and his service. You're using it as a political pawn, using him as a political pawn to make some kind of asinine agenda come true. How dare you?
And, you know, I want to thank Track for his service. And I want to say that I feel bad that he's having these problems. And yes, he should get treatment. Why is his mother not at his side? You know, if I was in something like that, in a horrible situation like that, my mother would be at my side. She wouldn't be out publicly campaigning, raising my name for some blowhard that's running for president. Family comes first. Because if you think about it, if family is the fundamental building block of society, and you want society to be better, shouldn't you first and foremost make your family better?
That would be logical. That would be the logical thing to do.
Yeah.
Now,
And
people are going to say,
and folks,
well,
we wouldn't have brought this up if she hadn't.
Sure. And people are going to say, well, you can't really speak to that because you don't know the whole situation. Don't need to. She divulged it.
Yeah.
She divulged it. She brought it to the forefront. You know what? Here's the well, you don't have kids that are in the military. You're right, I don't. But see, to me, it's I'm going to make this analogy. I don't have to go to prison to know what prison's like.
No.
Because I know individuals who have been there, and through their own testimony and their own accomplishments and endeavors, I've learned what it's like. Learned it well enough to know that I don't want to be there.
Yeah.
That's why I've made the choices that I've made in my own personal life. That's why I've made the choices that I have when raising my children, and I will refer to them as my children because I've raised them for 18 years. They are my children, not mine biologically, but they are mine. And this is why I have done the things and made the choices that I have. Am I perfect? Am I better than anybody else? Hell no. Why? Because I've made mistakes too. And I'll be the first one to admit that I've made mistakes. Because I'm not perfect. I'm human. Now, Sarah Palin, this is a mistake for you to utilize your son's ambitions, his endeavors, and his life in the military. It is a mistake for you to do this. I would expect nothing more. If you are truly a decent person and you are truly a good parent, I would expect you to apologize to your son for this, because that would be the right thing to do. You want to show honor and integrity and honesty, apologize to your son Track for this.
In public, since you dragged his name in public. Look, we are giving you the opportunity here, Palin, to save some face, because we can understand being emotional. We can understand trying to vent your frustrations. but that's the wrong forum to do it on. It's the wrong place to do it, and this is the wrong time to do it. There's no way around that. And it's an unfortunate lapse in judgment. But I think that her endorsing of Donald Trump is a major lapse in judgment.
Well, it's a catalyst.
Miscalculation.
It could be viewed as a catalyst.
Yeah. And, you know, why? Why has she endorsed Trump? It makes no sense. None. Any more than it makes sense that she's been out in Arizona stumping for John McCain against a true constitutional conservative.
Kelly Ward.
Kelly Ward. It's disgusting. And it needs to stop.
Yeah. So
Sarah, your family needs you. Donald Trump, he doesn't need you. Your family, they need you.
And don't take this the wrong way, Miss Palin, but this country doesn't need you standing up there saying the things that you're saying. If you want to do something for this country, if you want to, quote unquote, make America great again,
start with your family.
Start with your family. Start with your family. Help them. Help your family. Help heal your family. After all, it is part of your obligation as one of the parent figures, one of the authority figures in that family.
Mm-hmm.
It is your obligation as your lifelong partner to your husband.
And her husband's out on the campaign trail too. Both of the parents are running around doing these campaign trails while their son is in jail. I don't know. I've got a bad image here.
I'm getting a very bad image.
It's not good. This is wrong. Folks, we don't do this to belittle her. And we don't do it to belittle them. But are these the people whose judgment we are to trust? I don't think so. I don't think so. You know, one of the things that my parents did, and I'm going to get personal here, both of my parents were physicians and were on call all the time growing up. But one of the things that they always did was they would make sure that they were working together so that if something happened to one of the kids, I mean, I have an older sister and then there was me, then one of them could break away from work and take care of the child.
Mm-hmm.
That is the way that a power couple works. That is the way that a family stays with the family in the center. And that's how I was taught to be, to always put family in the center. Because as a family, you learn your values. As a family, you add the stability to society itself. And again, if you want to rekindle this country and to get this country on the right path, you need to be able to have a stable environment for the family to have a fluent and working knowledge and understanding of the Constitution. And to know that if you infringe upon other people's rights, there are consequences. But you shouldn't both be out in public running around with the hairpiece, with his skunk fur, when your son is basically, your son was putting out a cry for help. That's what he was doing.
And it's being ignored.
Yes.
Now, see, I'm going to get a little personal here too. Quite a while back, I'd say probably, I don't know, 15 years or so, maybe. I think I was 22, 23. About 12 years ago. 12, 14 years. I applied for a job as a insurance salesman But it wasn't just as just an agent. I was actually applying for a regional or district manager position.
Right.
And I had to take two tests. They gave me two tests. They gave me an IQ test, which they gave me 50 questions and 12 minutes to answer those 50 questions. Had no problem with the IQ test. I didn't answer all the questions. Of course, it's not expected that everybody does, unless you're some kind of, out of this world genius. Yeah. But the other test was more of a complacency test. And I failed the complacency test. Basically because I was not willing to devote 15 to 18 hours out of my day to my job as opposed to my family, which I had not been involved in all that long. So I chose my family over my job. Now, would that job have set me up to where I would have a good living, a high wage, make money, enjoy some of the better things in life, have a nice nice house, big house, fancy car, this and that, go on vacations? So, sure, it quite possibly could have. In fact, it probably would have. But I don't care about those things because that's not how I was raised. I was raised family comes first.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to thank both of my parents, especially my father, for instilling that in me.
Right.
Because that is how I was brought up. That's what I was told. I have 3 younger brothers. And if there was anything that I learned growing up and going through the discipline that I did, that it was that you stick with your brothers. You stick with your family. You don't roll on your family. If your family members are wrong, you hold them accountable. But if they're not wrong, you don't abandon them. If they need help, you don't abandon them. You do not leave them. You do everything within your power to make sure that you can be there for them, to help them through it.
Right. And even when they're wrong.
Even when they're wrong, that is what
you correct them. You correct them, but you stay by their side.
Sure. You don't correct them and then go off and just you cannot handle situations like that with nothing more than an iron fist, because all that's going to do is create resentment, which is going to bring on more burdens. And especially with an individual like Track, that, like you said, this was a cry for help.
Yeah.
And he's sitting in jail while his parents are traversing about the country campaigning for an individual that doesn't really have everything in line.
Yeah.
Why? For what? Some kind of sense of notoriety? Some kind of rekindled, fame? Money? What it would to me,
it doesn't make sense.
Well, it does, but it's too disgusting to talk about because it literally is making my stomach turn.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
This is why I say, Sarah Palin, you are a bad mother. Because my mother wouldn't even do this to me. I don't know of any other individual's mother that would do this to them.
Unless they were incredibly narcissistic.
Unless they didn't care or love their children.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that Sarah Palin doesn't love her children. I have all the faith in the world and trust and belief that she does.
Yeah.
But her judgment is clouded right now.
Yeah.
Is it, the suave the suave
debonair,
the suave debonair or debonair, that's tantalized her, or and did she really stop and drink a truckload of Flint water? I don't know what would possess you to do this. And again, this is not to look down on you or cast stones at you. This is to get you to understand. Just like Randy said, family is the fundamental building block of what this country is. One of the fundamental building blocks.
It's part of the natural law tenets.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not willing to stand on all of the natural law tenets and willing to say, well, I can balance on this one and I don't need these two or whatever, that's setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
Is what it is. Thus, with setting yourself up for failure and you're convincing other people to follow along with you, you're setting them up for failure. And when you bolster up an individual like Donald Trump and say he's a great leader, this and that, how can someone be a great leader if these things are happening and failure is imminent?
Yeah. Yeah. And just to compare the way Ted Cruz handled what, she spoke of betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
She betrayed Cruz. And the way Cruz handled that was just, as you mentioned at the very outset of this program, a true mark of character.
Yes.
And he has been consistent with that. He has shown that he has character. Why has Trump not come out and said that Sarah needs to go be with her family? Why has he not put that pressure on her? He has come out and said that she spoke longer than he thought she would, and that's why he looked uncomfortable during that speech the other night. But why was he not saying his heart goes out to not just Track, but Track's girlfriend too? People, we can't forget that she's suffering as well.
Sure. And it's always people that suffer that are never acknowledged. There's always people. See, no matter what the circumstances are in any situation like that, it's not just the individual, and it's not just the the party on the receiving end.
It's everybody.
It's everybody. What about Track's other brothers and sisters? What about his friends? What about his fellow military servicemen and women? What about them? What about the people of the United States? Because overall, there's a vast, overwhelming support, regardless of all the Jessica Jins in the world, and Ward Churchills.
Yeah.
There are people, there's a vast majority of United States citizens that, first and foremost, you don't screw with the military.
No.
They have the military's back any given point in time.
Because the military keeps us safe. The military is the vanguard of defense for our shared Constitution and our fundamental and unalienable rights. And yes, she is right to point at Obama for being negative and detrimental to the military. But I don't think it was on point in this case. Just bad time, poor judgment.
And the thing is, again, like I said, she's not completely wrong in pointing this out. It's just the way she went about it. Yeah. It's the way she went about it. To me, if I was in her position and my son had this happen to him, I would have made a phone call and said, Mr. Trump, or whoever the case may have been, I have something that is more important,
urgent, pressing,
that needs to be handled, and as soon as I get that squared away, I'm on board with you.
Yeah.
That, what? I would have nothing but the utmost respect for Sarah Palin at that point.
Just like what we did with Dr. Carson. You see, this is the difference between Sarah Palin and Dr. Carson. You notice Carson suspended his campaign when his campaign worker was killed. That's not even his family, but he became like family to him.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you see, folks, this is what we try to point to. You have to be consistent with your principles and your values. You cannot just be willy-nilly about them. You cannot just use them as tools for political aggrandizement. You remember the Wellstone, Senator Wellstone, or whatever it was back in 2000 or 2001 or 2, that was killed in the plane crash with his entire family, and how disgusting it was when the Democrats all danced on their graves to make political hay out of it.
Yeah.
That is the kind of stuff that we're trying to get away from. That is the kind of stuff that poisons the souls of men.
That is the kind of stuff that is leading more and more progressively to political correctness, indoctrination, and revisionism gaining more of a foothold than what it has now. This is it. This is all part of that agenda.
Absolutely.
And Sarah Palin, you fell into the trap. And again, like Randy said, we're not trying to belittle you or your family. All we want to do is, consider this to be some tough American love is what it is. That's exactly what it is. It's tough love. I have respect for you. I do respect you, Sarah Palin. I have respect for your accomplishments. I have respect for some of the ideologies that you have. But when, just like anybody else, and I'm going to say this right now, I would expect Randy or anybody else, a total stranger, should I step out of line or should I make a mistake, to correct me.
Yeah.
In order for the accountability at the level that you want to take place to occur, you have to be able to be held accountable yourself.
Right.
Randy and I have always stated this.
Yep.
Long before the Wright Flyer even came into being.
Right.
We've always held this view because that is, again, one of the tenets of natural law. You have to be held accountable. If you're not willing to be held accountable for your own actions, you have no authority and you have no credibility to speak to the accountability of anybody else.
Yeah, self-respect, self-accountability, self-determination. Those three elements form the pillars of society. And without them, society begins to crumble. That's where you see all of the moral decay and the moral rot that is just afflicting our society, that has poisoned our society. And as Jeremy mentioned, that is absolutely where this cancerous and poisonous doctrine of political correctness, which we have declared war on, by the way, came into being. And it has put us in such a negative place as a country. It has stirred us to the point of such anger that we are blinded by our drive for rage that we don't even see how destructive it is making us. And I see that with Sarah Palin. And again, folks, what it really comes down to, the way that we restore the country, because the country never stopped being great, but the way that we see a rebirth of our constitutional way of life and government is to adhere to the Constitution. That means that you have to have a fluent and working knowledge and understanding of not only the Constitution, but also your fundamental and unalienable rights. And with that said, it is time for us to begin our descent. I'm going to go ahead and send the flight attendant back for one last round of alcohol. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, I'm your Captain Randy Wright, and am joined by my first officer, Jeremy Grapington. We want to thank you for choosing to fly the Wright Flyer. We also invite you to leave comments, questions, concerns, either here on our YouTube page or on our Facebook page or our Google Plus page. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for flying the Wright Flyer. We hope that you join us the next time we go over the friendly airwaves, leaving you with an indelible yet pure sense of enlightenment as always. Ladies and gentlemen, do take